Well, hello everyone. I'm Tyler Chrestman, and welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Today on the podcast, first of all, I'm going to apologize just a little bit. This is an episode mostly for the people in my general geographic area. So we're going to be breaking down the Missouri ballot, the November 3rd ballot, because the Missouri and the city of St. Louis have some amendments and some propositions that are going to be on our ballot. And there's a couple of them that are pretty awful. So we're going to go over them. One in particular that I really dislike because it is very misleading. And we're just going to go off. We got a lot to get through. We're going to just start it off, just breaking them all down. So we have on the ballot, Missouri Amendment 1, State Executive Term Limits. So if you vote yes on Amendment 1, this vote supports the constitutional amendment that limits the Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, State Auditor, and Attorney General to 2 terms. Now, the state constitution already limits the governor and the state treasurer, so this will just make those other executive offices also 2-term limits. In general, I am for term limits on political offices. I think that the longer you are in political office, the more likely you are to become corrupt. I think that there is no reason that someone should spend 47 years in government, and I just don't like it. I don't agree with it at all. So I would be voting yes on this. I'm just for term limits. So some of these positions have term limits in the majority of states. Some of them don't. Some of them have lifetime term limits. Some have consecutive term limits. So it really depends on the state. None of this is going to make Missouri radical either way. If it gets passed, if it doesn't get passed, well, there are lots of states who have them, lots of states that don't. So there's not a good argument one way or the other in terms of this being some sort of radical idea. It's not. But I'm for it. I am just in principle am for term limits. So vote yes on Amendment 1. This next one is one that really... This is one that really pisses me off. This one is so misleading. It should be criminal. It's ridiculous. It's nonsensical. So you have Missouri Amendment 3, Redistricting Process and Criteria, Lobbying and Campaign Finance Amendment. Now, this one right here, just that title alone is so misleading. It's disgusting. This has absolutely nothing to do with lobbying and campaign finance reform. Nothing whatsoever. But they put it in there because I heard somebody recently say it's amendment candy. It's voter candy, something along those lines, where they say, "Oh, look, we can trick the voters who are stupid and don't do their research into voting for this thing by putting campaign finance reform in there." And they'll say, "Oh, I'm for campaign finance reform. Let me vote for this." Well, here's what it does for campaign finance reform. It changes the amount that lobbyists can give to members of Congress. It changes the amount that they're limited to from $5 to $0. So it changes the law by $5. Whoa, watch out, lobbyists, they're coming for you. And it lowers the campaign contribution limit from $2,500 down to $2,400 for the state Senate campaigns. This is designed just to trick you into voting for this, because what this actually does is expect low informed voters to walk in there and vote based on the title. What it actually does is it takes away the nonpartisan state what is that word? Demographer? That doesn't sound right. And instead it allows the governor to appoint a commission to redraw district maps. So everyone should hate gerrymandering. We all should. It's ridiculous. You shouldn't draw lines for congressional districts based on party affiliation. That's nonsense. That's exactly what this is going to do. So, according to my understanding of the law as I was reading it, they're saying that they're going to make a bipartisan commission. But the way that this works is the governor appoints 3 people, and the Senate majority and minority leaders have to agree on a person. However, let's imagine that, just for example, the Missouri governor is a Republican. He has 3 people who he nominates who are fairly conservative in their leanings, and the Democratic minority leader doesn't like any of them. Well, he can't just reject them. If they can't come up with a consensus based on those three people, all the minority party can do is pick one person that they really don't like, and that person goes away, and then one of the other two becomes the person who gets to draw the lines. So it's not really bipartisan. It's, again, that's even tricky in the statement. It's nonsense. This is how you get gerrymandering. I hate gerrymandering. I think that we need to have a better process for drawing district lines. They're very important, and they shouldn't be done along party lines to elect more Democrats or elect more Republicans. I think it's bad either way it goes. So I don't like this. I don't like this law. I think if you really thought that the way that we are doing it is a problem, you wouldn't try and trick people. So even if this was a better way to do it, which maybe it is a better way than trying to say we're going to at least own our partisanship, but I'm not for it because you're trying to trick people, and that is just gross. So no, vote no on Amendment 3. If you don't remember anything else when you go into the voting booth, vote no on Amendment 3. Missouri Amendment 3 is garbage. It is trying to trick you. It's not good whatsoever. So that one's no. We have the next one, Proposition T. Gross receipt tax on telecommunications and fiber network providers. This is a hard one to understand. I tried to wrap my head around this yesterday because basically what it does is it offers a gross receipt tax to telecommunications and fiber network providers. And a gross receipt tax is what I found kind of similar to a sales tax. And it would replace the current structure where companies that lay fiber networks must pay an annual right-of-way fee of $2.20 per linear foot of fiber. I'm going on the record. I'll say I don't know if this is a better structure. I don't know if a gross receipt tax is better than paying the right-of-way fee. I'm not 100% sure. Some people say that yes, because you're able to defer until you get customers, and it would basically provide more incentive for companies to lay high network fiber. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I'm going to say this. I'm voting no on it. And here's why. This is incomprehensible to the regular person. I know a fair amount about politics. I'm not going to say I know everything. I obviously do not. But I know a fair amount. I read this and I am not able to decipher it. I can't get to the bottom of what is what, and it doesn't do a very good job of explaining the benefit of a gross receipt tax as opposed to the way it does. I haven't heard anyone make great arguments one way or the other. So I'm voting no on this, mostly because I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I know that I don't like the way it's written, and I know that if you really want people to understand it, you should explain it better. They don't do a good job of explaining it whatsoever. So I'm voting no on this. So that's a no on Prop T, mainly because who knows what the hell they're saying? I don't. Yeah, I feel like you need a degree in economics to understand the benefit of a gross receipt tax. I was doing some breakdowns last night. I was looking up some benefits and people go back and forth. It seems like there's a debate among economists whether or not they're good or bad or how they work. So I don't know. I'm not for it though. That's for sure. Because it is just poorly written. So that's a no on Prop T. Then we have Missouri Prop 1, which removes residency requirement for city employees. This has always been a stupid rule. It has always been a stupid rule. I don't care where someone lives, as long as they do a good job when they come to work. I've lived in the city of St. Louis for, I don't know, a number of years, 8 years, 9 years, something like that. I don't care where the people who work here go, with the exception of, I think this excludes the mayor and the people appointed directly by the mayor. I believe it excludes those people, but everyone else. There are 6,000 something civil employees who work for the government in St. Louis. I don't care where any of those people live. This is a bad rule that all it does is restrict the pool of applicants from which you can hire. The city of St. Louis has a metro area that's 3-4 times larger than the downtown city population. So I don't understand why we're taking the pool of people who might want to drive into the city and work, but like living in the county for a variety of reasons, and we're saying, well, you don't get to work here. It's ridiculous. It's a bad rule. The idea that you have to live in the community in which you work is silly. Most people don't. I work in St. Louis County. I live in St. Louis City. Do I do a worse job at my job because I have to drive 20 minutes to get there? No, absolutely not. It's insane. It's just a stupid rule. And by the way, there was a law passed recently by the governor that waived it for firefighters and first responders, which was great because there are 145 spots in the city police department that are vacant right now. And the chief says he can't fill them. He doesn't have people to fill them because of this requirement. He said it's the largest deterrent for people to work for the St. Louis City Police Department is the fact that they have to live in the city. And 145 spots on the police department the size of St. Louis is a big deal. People complain about crime in the city. Well, the only way to address crime in the city is with police officers. You can try and attack crime at the base. You can try and do a bunch of things to deter crime. You need police officers on the street. It's one of the best ways to deter criminals. So I am definitely a yes on Missouri Prop 1. Get rid of the residency requirement. It's a ridiculous, nonsensical rule. Next one, we have Proposition R, property tax to fund early childhood services. So this authorizes a property tax of $60 per $100,000 in assessed value to generate $2.3 million in revenue for early childhood services. So the Missouri property is assessed at various percentages of market or actual value depending on the type of property. So houses are 19% of the actual value, farm machines 12%, historic cars 5%, crops 0.5%, other vehicles 33%. So basically what this is saying, let me just see if I can do some quick mental math here. So if you have a house that's $100,000, you'd pay $60 on it. Except you wouldn't really, because it's going to assess your house 20% of the actual value. So you pay $100,000 for your house. Well, it's going to say that your house is actually only worth $19,000, and you're going to be taxed according to that. So you actually pay substantially less than the $60, whatever that value would be. I'm not going to do it off the top of my head. Embarrass myself. So we have. So it wouldn't cost you a lot is basically what they're saying, because you're not even paying $60 for your $100,000 house. You're paying on basically a $19,000 house, which is obviously substantially less. Now, here's my problem, and this is the part where people disagree with me a lot. I vote no on almost all new taxes. I'm against property tax in principle. The idea that the government is going to charge me every year to live in my house is ridiculous. I own this house. I own it. It's mine. But every year I have to pay the government for it. I'm already paying for the house. I bought it from somebody else. Pay a mortgage every month. And then the government comes and says, yeah, but you also own a house and we think you should pay us for it. Why? I'm like this with my car too. It makes absolutely no sense. I pay a sales tax when I buy my car. I pay a licensing fee to license my vehicle. And then every year they charge me just to have it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't like property tax. I think they're ridiculous in general. The sales tax is fine. I am, in terms of taxes, I find a sales tax to be the most fair because everyone pays it equally because we all buy things. And whatever you buy, you pay a sales tax on. I'm fine with that. Sales tax on vehicle. Makes sense. You're paying, everyone pays it. Okay. I'm okay with this. Property taxes, they're ridiculous. I vote no because, it's just a principle. I don't like them. If you want to give money to early childhood education, then go do that. Find a charity. Go give money. Go volunteer your time. But don't take money from me for early childhood education just because you can. It's ridiculous. I'm a no. Definitely a no on this one. And this will be one that people probably disagree with. They're like, but it's for the children. All right, that's nice. I love helping children. Not this way. Give money to charity if you want to help children. Don't give money to the government where they will it'll be lost in the nonsensical bureaucracy and bloat of the government. So no on this one for sure. And then the last one we have is the St. Louis Prop D. So this is just for my St. Louis folks. This one is interesting. I really like this one. So St. Louis Prop D approval voting initiative. So this makes elections open and nonpartisan for the offices of mayor, comptroller, president of the board of aldermen, and for the board of aldermen. So this would change the plurality voting system to an approval voting system, where voters can vote for any number of candidates they prefer in the primary, and then a runoff election will be held for the general election of the top 2 candidates. Now, let me explain that for people who don't know what an approval voting system is. Okay, right now, as it stands, when we go on primary day, and you have all the Democrats running, all the Republicans running, you're basically voting for a Democrat. So let's use this last election in St. Louis as an example. You had Lyda Chrestman, and what was her name? Tashira, something like that. Tashira Jones, I think was her name. Apologies if I'm mistaken that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you had these 2 women who were competing for the spot of mayor. Now, in downtown St. Louis, if you are a Democrat, you're going to win the election. That's just the way it goes. Most major urban centers, if you're a Democrat, you're going to win the election. So basically, these 2 women were competing in the Democratic primary with the assumption that whoever won the Democratic primary was going to be mayor, which was true. And so what this would do is, instead of people voting for one person in the primary election who then becomes the Democratic nominee and they face the Republican nominee in the general election and then trounce them. Even Chrestman got 67% of the vote, and she is not popular at all. And even as an unpopular Democrat, she's still winning 67% of the vote. So that just shows you how crazy Democrat the downtown St. Louis is. So what this would do is, instead of going in there and voting for one person, you would vote for everyone that you like on the ticket. And it gets rid of all party affiliation here. So it doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, the rent is too damn high party, whatever the case may be, they all go on one ticket, and it'll tell you, who they are, what party they're for, but you can vote for 5 or 6 of them if you want, out of all the people running in the primary. So let's say I like Chrestman for whatever reason. I've been hit on the head, and I like her, and so I vote for her because I approve of her. All right, there we go. Check her. But I also like, again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing the name. I can't remember her off the top of my head. I think it was Tashira Jones, but the lady who ran against her in the primary, I also like her. So I vote for her too. And then, whatever reason, I vote for, I find the Republican candidate to be also intriguing. I vote for him too. So I vote for 3 people out of the 6 or 7 people on the ticket because I like all 3 of them. What this does is it then takes all of the votes that everyone has, and the 2 people who got the most approval run in the general election against each other. Now, there are benefits and there are drawbacks to this. One of the benefits is that the third-party candidates will no longer run as spoilers. So let's say someone like myself, for example. I don't love the Libertarian Party, but I'd like there to be a third-party option, but sometimes it does feel like voting for a Libertarian candidate is throwing your vote away. I voted for a Libertarian candidate in one of the last elections, mostly because I think it was maybe Lacey Clay's election, where he wins 90% of the vote downtown. And so I voted for him just because. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to vote for him just to give the Libertarians some votes. And the So they would no longer act as spoilers because let's say I vote for the Libertarian, but I'm a Republican. I'm not, but in this scenario, let's say I'm a Republican and I want to vote for the Libertarian, but I don't want to throw my vote away, so I got to vote for the Republican. Well, now I can vote for both of them. And what this allows is, I think, a more general election. It's better. I just feel like this is better in a primary situation because in especially places like St. Louis, which are incredibly heavily Democrat, at least it allows for some competition in the general election. When Chrestman was up for election, you knew she was going to win. She won the primary, therefore she wins the election. That's kind of ridiculous. If this would be, I think, a more interesting way to do the election. And also, I really feel as though it makes third-party candidates more viable, which I think is good for our electoral process in general. So I'm for it. I am definitely for this one. St. Louis Prop D is a yes. So let's scroll back up here real quick and go over this again. Missouri Amendment 1, yes. On executive term limits, I'm for it. Missouri Amendment 3 is an ecstatic hell no. We should all be against that. Proposition T is a no because it's incomprehensible garbage. Missouri Prop 1 to remove the residency requirements, we are for that. Prop R to fund the early childhood services, we're against that. And what is this one? Prop D. Prop D, we are for it because it seems to be interesting. The only other thing I want to touch on the ballot, I'm not going to go over who's running for president or all the other offices. People are very capable of distinguishing Democrats and Republicans, which they like, which they don't. But the one thing that other people don't know on the ballot often is the judges. So the Missouri Bar did not recommend any judges for removal as far as I'm aware. I did some research last night trying to find that out for myself, and it looks like every judge did very well in their independent assessment. So all the judges, the Missouri Bar recommends we keep them, which is good. I normally think that judges are almost always kept, and that's not always a good thing. But this year it would be a good thing. So there we go. We have broken down the Missouri ballot and the St. Louis initiatives that all my people around me are going to be voting for. For everyone else, if you watch this, well, thank you. But if you didn't, no hard feelings. As far as it goes, we're going to leave it there today. I hope everyone enjoyed it and everyone gets out there and goes to vote in a few days because it is important. I don't care who you vote for, but you should definitely exercise your constitutional right to vote. People fought. People died. Go vote. It's important. We're going to leave it there for the day. I am Tyler Chrestman. I will talk to you guys later.